There are many different ways that you can improve at Deadlock that you might have thought about before, whether it's improving your macro game, learning how to fight better, or learning which items to buy. But there is one aspect of Deadlock that does tend to go overlooked, especially for new or inexperienced players, and that is time management. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is AndrewChicken, and welcome back to another video. And in this guide, I'm going to be breaking down some of the fundamental things you need to learn about timing in Deadlock, because there are certain aspects of the game that are based on a timer system, and you need to know how to exploit those in order to win more matches. So today we're going to be discussing the different timers in Deadlock, such as camp spawn timers, sinner sacrifice timers, and the earn, rejuve, and buff timers as well, when they spawn in, and how you can best prepare yourself to actually take advantage of these as soon as they spawn. As with many of my guides, this will be geared mostly towards new, inexperienced, or lower rank players, and if you want to see more guides such as this from me, I'll have a playlist linked in the description filled with all sorts of informational and educational videos like this one. And if you guys enjoy this type of content and you want to see more, then make sure to like this video and also subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any future videos from me. But with that being said, let's get started by talking about the first timer that you need to pay attention to in your Deadlock match, and that is the 2-minute tier 1 camp and boxes spawn time. These are the absolute first things to spawn in any Deadlock match, and they always spawn in at exactly 2 minutes, and they take 3 minutes to respawn. And so ideally you want to try and clear these camps and take these boxes as soon as you can after they have spawned, so that way you can try and get a leg up on the enemies. And it's even better if you're actually able to go over and steal some of the enemy's loot, such as the boxes on their side of the bridge over here. There are a couple of them, and wow, I got really unlucky there, but you can try to steal their loot and build a soul lead. These are definitely the easiest resources to pick up and manage because they are the first to spawn in, and so they're the resources that you're able to pay the most attention to because there's not a million other things going on the map. But there are some general tips that you need to know about clearing these most effectively. So first of all, these camps, you can actually punch 2 of the minions at the same time, just like this, which actually saves you a heck of a lot of time in clearing these camps because you're doubling your damage output. And there are also certain abilities that you can use to clear these camps, but you have to bear in mind that the longer the cooldown of the ability, the less valuable it is to actually use it to clear the camp, because you would want to rather use that to poke the enemies instead. And so a lot of characters will resort to just kind of shooting and punching the minions, and they'll usually have something like monster rounds or another beneficial gun or melee item to help them out in clearing these as quickly as possible. Now, an example of an ability you would absolutely want to use on these tier 1 camps is something like Mina's Rake, because not only does this have a very low cooldown and it's an AoE ability, but Mina also benefits from using it on a camp because she is able to heal herself off of the minions that she kills. So you can just prep the minions like this, and then you can rake them all up and get a ton of healing and clear it out super quickly. Now, boxes are a bit trickier because they spawn all over the map, and so you have to actually familiarize yourself with where they spawn so that way you can get to them as efficiently as possible. But the other thing that you have to keep in mind with box farming is that often boxes spawn pretty far away from the lane. For example, there are some boxes all the way up in here that you can pick up, but these are a decent distance away from the lane. And so if the minions that you need to kill in order to get souls are all the way back here, then you're probably not going to get those souls if you're back here farming these boxes. And so the thing you need to always remember when you go for box runs, or even sometimes clearing out tier 1 or tier 2 camps on lane, is that you want to clear the wave first. You want to make sure that you kill these minions, all 4 of them, before you go and get your boxes. And there are 2 main reasons for this. First of all, you don't want to lose out on the souls from these minions. Minions are the biggest source of souls in the entire game. They are consistent and they give a lot of value, and so missing out on these is very detrimental. But second, if you kill all of the enemy's minions, then your minions will be free to push up to the tower and buy you some space and some time to then go and pilfer as many of these boxes as you want until the next wave arrives. And so you want to get these boxes and take these camps after you've cleared the wave. It is very efficient to do that, and if you don't do that, you're likely likely going to lose out on either souls or lane pressure. The next timer that you need to pay attention to, this is very important, is the 5-minute bridge buff timer. Every 5 minutes, bridge buffs will spawn up on these bridges here, and you want your team to be in control of these. There are only 2 bridge buffs that spawn at a time, and you don't want the enemies to get them because they can be quite powerful, especially if they are the vitality buff, the green buff. That one is very effective in the early game. And these bridge buffs are most commonly accessed by these jump pads right here. So you take the jump pad up to the bridge buff, and then you try and claim it just like that. And there's a jump pad here on the blue lane as well to take you up to the bridge buff. The other way that you might have to go up to the bridge buff is just by walking and pathing your way all the way over here, and then taking the zip line up. Although this is generally slower, but depending on how much space you're able to make, how much pressure you're able to put on the enemies, it might be the safer option. So how can you go about securing these bridge buffs? Well, it's very important for your team to try and secure these buffs because it gives them a major advantage on your lane. So the first thing I always do, if I'm able to, is call out that the bridge buffs are about to spawn. So usually about 30 to 20 seconds out, I'll say, hey, the bridge buffs are spawning soon, to let the team know that they need to be on their game and make sure that they put enough pressure on their lanes so that they have enough time to actually go over and claim the buff. And that's the second thing that you need to pay attention to. There's a wave of creeps that spawns at about 4 minutes and 40 seconds, and that wave of creeps in particular, it is imperative that you exterminate them as quickly as possible. You want to destroy them and try to push the enemies back as far as you can, so that way you have enough time to actually maneuver on over here and take the jump pad up to the buff. And you also have to be careful now because you can get stunned on the jump pad here, so that can be a little bit tricky, and sometimes fights will break out on the jump pad between you and the enemies in order to get over to the bridge buff, and that's really just a matter of having the fighting experience and skill to actually win the fight and get up to the bridge buff at that point. But the main thing is you need to create that pressure in order to get up to the bridge buff. If you have minions pushed all the way up to your guardian like this by the time that 5-minute mark hits, or your lane partner is dead or something like that, then you're not going to have a chance of getting up to the bridge buff. And so if you're in a position like that, usually you'd want someone from one of your other lanes that is being more successful to go and get up to the bridge buff. So let's say that I'm here on blue lane, my lane partner is down, I got minions up here, I might call and say, hey, yellow lane, you want to go get that vitality buff? I can't really get that right now. And coordinate that with your team to try and make sure that you guys secure those buffs. But yeah, taking the bridge buffs isn't just about realizing, oh, it's 5 minutes, I need to go over to the bridge buff now. You need to be thinking about the bridge buff in advance, at least 30 seconds, to try and create enough pressure and make sure that you don't falter on your lane so that you're able to go over to the bridge buff. Now, one more thing to note at the 5-minute mark is that, well, these tier 1 camps and the boxes will probably start to respawn pretty soon. If you're on the ball about clearing this camp out just a couple seconds after the 2-minute mark, then, well, surely enough, just a couple seconds after the 5-minute mark, the camps are going to be back again. And so you can also try to prioritize getting those as soon as they respawn. It's kind of just an easy trick to remember in my head that, okay, if I've cleared these camps out and I've cleared the boxes out super quickly after the 2-minute mark, then once those bridge buffs spawn, I'm going to be thinking about, hey, maybe taking those camps again in a couple of seconds. The next timer is the 6-minute tier 2 jungle camp timer. This is when these tier 2 camps will spawn in, the ones with these slightly bigger looking jungle creeps, and these can be quite lucrative. However, this timer is definitely the least important out of the timers that I have talked about here, and you can really generally just try to take these in a similar fashion to how you would the tier 1 camps. Basically, push your lane up, make sure that you have space, and then try to take out some of these minions at your own leisure, and you don't have to finish off the entire camp right away. Sometimes even just taking out one of these smaller minions, 1 or 2 of these just like this, will be enough to net you enough souls to get your next item purchase online. So just generally keep in mind that after 6 minutes, you have much more resources at your disposal in order to get more souls online. Now let's discuss the 4th and another one of the most important timers, and that is the Sinner's Sacrifice and tier 3 camp spawn timer. So this is kind of a twofold timer. You have to worry about the Sinner's Sacrifices, and you also have to keep in mind that if you plan on getting Cultist Sacrifice, then the 8-minute mark is probably a good time to get it online because that's when the tier 3 minions spawn, and tier 3 minions give you the highest value out of any minion when you eat them with the Cultist Sacrifice buff. And so if I get Cultist Sacrifice in my build, I do try and kind of plan around that. I will try to get it around 8 minutes, come on over here to the tier 3 camp, and just scoop up one of those, because look at that, I got 414 bonus souls from that minion just by eating it with Cultist Sacrifice. And Cultist Sacrifice is by far the fastest way to kill a tier 3 minion in the early to mid game. So, yeah, it is super duper effective, in my opinion, just kind of a general rule of thumb, although you can definitely get Cultist Sacrifice later if you want, but if you're really, really trying to optimize it, that's what I would do. But the thing that's much more important and generally applicable are these Sinner's Sacrifice machines. Now, if you haven't watched my video about Sinner's Sacrifices, then you definitely should, because, well, if you're not prioritizing these, you need to be. These are super duper strong. They give you a ton of souls, and they also give you 4 golden statue buffs if you complete them successfully, and that means heavy meleeing them when the lights are fully on at the top. So as you can see here, I get it down to this blinking light stage, and then as soon as the lights are full, hit that heavy melee, and I get 4 golden statue buffs. I just got 50 extra health from that, as well as spirit power. Are you kidding me? That's insane. So these are super duper good. And again, you want to try and steal the enemies if at all possible. Now, it's not always going to be possible, and that's okay. But you still want to try and pick these up as quickly as you possibly can. And there's usually one that spawns pretty close to your lane on every single lane. So on the yellow lane here, for example, this room right by the shop has a Sinner's Sacrifice in it. As soon as it spawns, I want to be thinking about claiming this as quickly as I can. The one risk about the Sinner's Sacrifice, of course, is that it does actually take a lot of health away from you. It does a lot of damage. And so you need to have some way to recoup that. And if you're generally in a low HP state where, you know, the enemies have kind of been beating you back a little bit, it may be a little bit too risky to actually go for the Sinner's Sacrifice early on the lane. And that's okay. You want to make sure that you don't die. Not dying is your biggest priority. You don't want to lose the lane because you died taking a Sinner's Machine and then the enemies just came up and killed you. And usually what I do if I end up going for a healing rite is I will just pop the healing rite during the Sinner's Sacrifice take. So I can pop that, and then it'll just heal back all of the damage that I'm taking from the Sinner's Sacrifice. The Sinner's Sacrifice doesn't interrupt the healing rite at all. And so this is a nice, easy way to just mitigate that. And as you can see, I'm basically not going to lose any health from that. Now, stealing the enemy's Sinner's Sacrifice is super duper risky, but super duper rewarding, because not only do you get those 4 golden statue buffs and a metric crap ton of souls, but the enemies are denied that. They have no opportunity now to get those same buffs for the next 5 minutes, or however long the respawn time is. So it is very good to try and steal this, but again, it's all about creating the pressure in order to get it in the first place. There are kind of 2 methods to go about this. The first is you could try to be really sneaky and incognito and come up here and take this when they're not paying attention. And this is a lot easier when the enemies are distracted doing something else, whether it's fighting your lane partner, or going and farming something else, or they just happen to be dead, right? And that kind of leads into the second thing, which is just creating enough pressure that you can come over here and take it and the enemies can't really do anything about it. So for example, if you know that it's about to be 8 minutes, right? It's like 7 minutes 50 seconds or 7 minutes 40 seconds or something like that. And you know that these Sinner's Machines are going to be up. Then what you can try to do is play aggressive, shove your lane of minions, right? Get them up there, kill the enemy's minions as quickly as possible, and then try to maybe go for a kill on one of the enemies. You should definitely have your ultimate by that point, and so maybe using your ultimates to force a kill so that way you have a lot of pressure in order to come over here and steal the Sinner's Machines would be a great thing to do. Especially if you don't feel super confident about your Guardian damage because the enemies are destroying your minions quickly, or you just don't have a lot of Guardian damage in your build. Then, killing the enemies, letting your minions kind of just push up a little bit, and then coming over here and stealing the Sinner's Sacrifice can be a very productive thing to do. Now, what you don't want to do is, let's say you're already low HP like this. The enemies have a lot of space and pressure on your lane right now. You don't want to come over here and take that Sinner's Sacrifice anyways, because look at how low I'm going to get from this Sinner's Sacrifice right here. I actually just almost straight up killed myself on this Sinner's Sacrifice. Look at all that damage I took, and now I was in double digits territory there with my health for a little bit there. I'm still super duper low. If I get hit with like a single viscous splatter right now, it's over. I'm dead. So that's really not what you want to do, and you also don't want to be trying to come over to the enemy's Sinner's Sacrifices while they have a ton of pressure on your lane. Let's say you've got minions knocking at your Guardian. That's a pretty poor time to go after the enemy's Sinner's Sacrifice, because you're just letting them get a ton of tower damage for free, and they might take your Guardian. And, well, Sinner's Sacrifices are valuable. I love greed and I love gambling just as much as anybody, but unless that tower is doomed to fall regardless of if you intervene, you probably shouldn't be going over there to steal their sacrifice. One more thing that you can remember is that if the enemies are on the ball about their sinner sacrifices and you want to try and use it as a place to kind of fight them, you absolutely can do that, but you just have to be very confident in your abilities. You have to have your skills actually up and not on cooldown, and you generally want to coordinate with your lane partner if you're going to invade and try and catch one of the enemies at their own sinner's sacrifice. And finally, let's talk about the 10-minute spawn timer. This is the timer for when the Spirit Urn and the mid-boss will spawn in, just like this. And the first Spirit Urn will always spawn in on yellow lane and will need to be transported over to green lane. So if you are on yellow lane, then you want to try and make sure that your lane is won, so that way you can maybe think about doing the urn. And doing the urn is its own separate thing. There's a lot of intricacies that go on with that, but generally if your team is up on kills and, you know, a few enemies are stuck in the spawn room trying to respawn, then you probably want to try and pick up the urn after the 10-minute point. Just make sure that you don't pick up the urn too late, because, well, the urn will refresh and reset every 5 minutes after the 10-minute mark. So at 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, etc., the urn will reset. And so if you pick it up at like minute 14, you're not going to have a lot of time to actually go over and turn in the urn. If a fight breaks out and then you have to end up dropping the urn, there's a good chance that it'll just reset and then you'll have to walk all the way back over to the other side of the map, and it's really awkward if you do that, so try and pick it up pretty early after it respawns if you plan on going for an urn. Bridge buffs will also respawn at the 10-minute mark, which is very, very important. It's another one that you can really easily keep an eye on, and this also tends to spawn after some people have already finished their lanes. They've either won or lost their lane, and so these are very, very important for finishing off the remainder of your lanes and kind of easing into the mid-game with a very strong lead, so you can go around just picking more people off. And so you want to try and pay attention to this as well. If it's about, 9 minutes 50 seconds, 9 minutes 40 seconds, you want to be thinking about getting this bridge buff if you can. But the final thing that spawns in at 10 minutes is the mid-boss, which is the most powerful thing in the game. The mid-boss drops the Rejuvenator Crystal, and the Rejuvenator Crystal is what wins you the game 85% of the time. The team that has the Rejuv is most likely to win the game. But you don't want to just go in there and start fighting it at the 10-minute mark. It spawns in at the 10-minute mark just to let you know that you can take it on, but it's usually not the best idea to take it on at the 10-minute mark. And so that's what I want to talk about next before we end off the video, is when you should be thinking about taking the mid-boss. Because, well, at the 10-minute mark, you really don't have enough damage to kill the mid-boss. Most characters are still just barely starting to get their builds online, and the second thing that you really need to think about with the Rejuv is, will the enemies be able to contest this Rejuv? And at the 10-minute mark, the respawn times are simply too short to give your team a reasonable window of opportunity to take the mid-boss. And respawn timers generally tend to go up as the game goes on, right? And there are certain kind of spikes where they end up hitting pretty long respawn times. And so most teams will generally wait a bit longer before they actually try and take the mid-boss. Most mid-boss takes these days usually happen around the 18 to 23 minute mark, I would say. That's a generally strong window to take the mid-boss, and that's because around that point in the game, respawn timers start to go way up. Especially after 20 minutes, that's when you start seeing respawn timers of like 40 seconds long, right? So if you get 1 or 2 kills there, you have like a 30-second window to go after that mid-boss before those enemies will be back to try and contest it. And you usually want to try and take the mid-boss when you have a kill advantage. So if 3 enemies are dead and only 1 person on your team is dead, 9 times out of 10, that's a great time to go and try to take the mid-boss. The only reason you wouldn't want to take the mid-boss at that point, around the 20-minute mark, would be because, let's say, your gun builds on your team are dead and so you don't have enough damage to take the mid-boss, or an enemy like Yamato with her ultimate, or Kelvin with his dome, are available in order to try and counterplay and secure the Rejuv, right? At that point, it would be a little bit riskier, although in some cases, with those characters alive, you might still try to go for it anyways. But yeah, generally around the 20-minute mark is when I would try to start looking for Rejuv picks, right? Going around, trying to look for kills with the intention of going into the mid-boss, picking up the Rejuv, and then ending the game. And that's when a lot of other very good players try to get the mid-boss as well. And so it's not a hard and fast timer like it is with, oh, every 5 minutes these bridge buffs spawn, or oh, every 5 minutes after the 10-minute mark the Spirit Urn resets, right? It's not one of those hard and fast timers, but it's generally like a macro level level timer, and it coincides with that big jump in respawn timers. So just like how I talked about with, just before the 5-minute mark, making sure to put your lane in a position where you can try to take the bridge buffs, or at the 8-minute mark, putting your lane in a strong position with a lot of pressure that you can take the sinner sacrifices. Around the 20-minute mark, that's when you want to be trying to put your team in a position where they can take the mid boss, because kills at that point start to have really long respawn timers, and that's when you want to strike, get the mid boss, and then go win the game. Now, of course, not every game is the same, and in some games you might be able to do it really fast. You get like 5 kills all at the same time, and then you can just speedrun mid. Other times you might need to wait a little bit longer, like the 25-minute mark or the 27-minute mark, before you're able to finally go mid. But usually, general rule of thumb, 20 minutes is when you want to do it. But anyways, that's going to do it for this video on managing timers in Deadlock. It's a part of the game that you might not think about, especially not as a newer and experienced player, but it is a very important part of the game, and it's something that a lot of higher elo players know all about exploiting and making sure that they're getting the resources on the map as quickly as possible. If you found this video to be helpful, of course make sure to drop a like and subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any future videos from me, and if you want to see more guides, I have a playlist linked in the description that I'd really appreciate it if you would check out. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I will see you all next time. Peace out.